Hello and welcome to Orbiting Brick. Today's video is a bit interesting because, I did not know what I was going to do for this video. Initially I was just messing around with parts in the VAB. I realized a Gemini docking port can fit pretty nicely on a Mercury capsule, and so that's where I got this idea from. It's going to be sending a Mercury spacecraft and a lander to Minmus to do a incredibly strange Minmus landing. Starting off, we have a tug. This is the first of three pieces of the spacecraft. Those three pieces will be tug, lander, and Mercury spacecraft, which I've slightly modified to have better provisions for a long-term space flight. Already the tug's in orbit because not much to really talk about. You saw a launch vehicle there, but nothing quite interesting. And this is just a fuel tank with an engine with some supplies attached to it. Next is lander on the same launch vehicle, just with different boosters. It's 1.25 meters all the way down. And the lander, as well as the Mercury spacecraft itself, are both from Bluedog Design Bureau, which is a fantastic mod which I highly recommend. And so, launch goes normally, using a near-future launch vehicle's engine on that first stage, as well as actually a near-future launch vehicle's engine on the second stage. You can see the lander there. It's a standard Gemini lander with an extra docking port on the bottom so it can connect to both the spacecraft and the tug. I'm actually turning on the RCS to help assist with the maneuvers because we have a very slim Delta V budget for this entire mission. And so, I decided to include more of the maneuver planning for this video. And so you can see how I do my rendezvous. It hasn't changed much since I made that tutorial. You just get in a different orbit and just wait. Works most of the time, and there's rarely ever any, you never really need to get somewhere urgently, I found. Anyways, we can now dock. And so doing the classic loud lazy method of docking. However, we actually have to pay special attention to the alignment because these docking ports have very specific and stringent requirements for alignment. But once we are docked, we can jettison the upper stage and deorbit it. And so now our spacecraft is about 2/3 the way done. And so, fairly soon now, we should get to the launch of the actual Mercury Capsule. Almost. There we go. Again on the same launch vehicle because I did not feel like looking at the wiki for the instructions on building the proper Mercury Atlas, excuse me for my bad pronunciations, and then still not have... Mercury is definitely not a good spacecraft to use for this. It has very low, just basically all it can do is get into orbit and deorbit, nothing else. And so my modifications include some RCS thrusters, and we're going to use the second stage to do our maneuvering. And so capsule itself pretty standard, except the drogue chute port at the top is, well, it's been replaced with the Gemini docking nose cone, which I realize it's a different diameter than the normal Mercury nose cone, but I think it looks pretty nice. Also, you noticed that we did not have a launch escape tower, since I couldn't fit the Mercury launch escape tower onto the Gemini nose cone, and the Gemini one wouldn't look right. Anyways, again, doing another rendezvous. And we actually have even less Delta V this time, and I have to be careful because the spacecraft itself has, again, very limited maneuverability. And then, you saw that lack of maneuverability in action there. We just destroyed the solar panels on the lander, which is gonna cause a few issues down the road, which we'll get to. And also docking, still not nominal, until we can correct that. And so now, we can do a quick EVA inspection of the craft. And I like how Kerbalism is completely ignoring the fact that the solar panels are non-existent and says that they're in good shape. Otherwise, the lander is seemingly undamaged, and I'm sure we won't need electricity for anything on the lander. And so that's our completed spacecraft, which looks kinda cursed with a Mercury spacecraft on it, not going to lie. But now, it's time to travel to Minmus. And so, performing our trans-Minmus injection burn, I skipped the maneuver plotting on this because you've seen enough maneuver plotting already. In fact, there's already some more here, where I'm correcting our course correction. I'm aiming for a roughly just equatorial orbit, and time warping out to our maneuver, using RCS to conserve ignitions. And so now we've arrived at Minmus because a time warp always likes to... it never gives you a gradual transition towards another planet, does it? Oh, celestial body in this case, sorry about that. Now we can now do some system checkouts, some science while we're in orbit. But yeah, main thing now is to prepare for the landing. First, our crew member goes on EVA over to the lander, which means the crew capsule will be completely uncontrollable while we're on the surface, which I made special plans for. Now we can board the lander can and get into the control seat, where the instruments are annoyingly mounted above the Kerbal. I'm unsure how how it's possible to pilot that, but I have no idea why I'm going off on a tangent about that. And we quickly dock the tug and the capsule back together. And so now it's time for the lander to orbit. I'm obviously aiming for one of the Minmus flats, which in just during this cube, it so heavily changes how Minmus looks. Honestly, I'm unsure if I like Janus Q Minmus or original Minmus better. Again, post your own opinion in the comments down below, because yeah, nobody ever comments on my videos most of the time. So again, when I was talking about with the lander, not sure how you would fly a capsule where the instruments are the opposite direction from where you're looking, but our Kerbal makes do, and we land pretty softly on the surface. I immediately turned off the life support systems to conserve energy, and we can head out on a EVA. And we can't really do much science because that would use a bunch of electricity, but we can plant the flag. Beautiful. And so, yeah, we can then reboard. You can just see how flat the Minmus flats actually are. And so, now we can time warp to when the mothership is above us. Unfortunately, at this point, we've run out of electricity completely, so that's it's a interesting control situation. And this was definitely not the first attempt. On previous attempts, the Kerbal died of CO2 poisoning due to the CO2 scrubbers being shut down. But after a very uncontrolled ascent, we are within a few hundred meters of the spacecraft. At that point, I call it good enough and have the Kerbal get on EVA. Because, yeah, no, we're not redocking. And, okay, so looking down or up, or to the sides, really, in a EVA mode, is always kind of an issue. And that's really a problem if your spacecraft is very much below you. So, yeah, I tried to do this in a Kerbal point of view, but I ended up going to a free cam most of the time. Eventually, there's our spacecraft, and we can slowly EVA over to it. And now we just need to find the hatches on it, because it's actually not very obvious on a real spacecraft. Eventually, I'm able to find the right side and board. Maybe, yeah, there we go. And so now we're immediately again out here and returning to Kerbin. Do normal escape burn. I'm warping away. And the time warping towards Kerbin. And so now we're just 1,000 kilometers above the surface. We can transfer some consumables over into the capsule. And we can undock and burn the engine a bit to separate the two craft. Just send the retro pack. And just a reentry. I've aimed for a pretty high reentry altitude of 50 kilometers because I was worried about a possible heating. And yeah, you can see it's getting pretty toasty there. And however, there's actually no risk of the craft melting, only the heat shield that built up any heat, which is strange because in testing, I guess I had some extra equipment on the spacecraft, because earlier, the craft randomly yawed to one side and almost melted, only returning from a low carbon orbit. However, we do not fully slow down on the first attempt, so we orbed around again, and this time will be the final air braking pass. And so, not much really happening. The heat shield has run out of ablator completely, but we're descending. We've deployed the drogue chute. And now it's just a pretty gentle coast down into the water. In fact, we can now deploy the main chute, testing the drogue chute, which I believe has already flown past us. So landing bag deploy, and I forgot to drop out of time warp when we impacted the surface, so we have a rough landing. But yeah. Kerbal survived. Yeah, that was a pretty interesting mission, wasn't it? I hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe, and goodbye.